Ladies and gentlemen, most people are willing to do what's easy. They choose what feels good. They stick with what's comfortable. But comfort is the enemy of excellence. Comfort is where ambitions fade. Cemeteries are filled with unrealized potential. Dreams left behind because people didn't push through the discomfort of doing what they disliked but knew was necessary. Let's talk about the discipline of daily practice. Every morning you're faced with a choice. Do what you feel like doing or do what needs to be done. The person who chooses to act on what must be done, regardless of emotion, is the one who eventually builds the life they desire. But the one who only follows feelings will always be controlled by moods, emotions, and outside conditions. Think about the athlete training at 5 a.m. Do you think they enjoy waking up that early? Do you think they look forward to sore muscles, fatigue, and sacrificing sleep? Of course not. But they've come to understand that discipline is a light burden while regret is crushing. They've realized that the pain of effort fades, but the pain of regret lingers. This truth applies to every area of life. The salesperson who makes an extra call after a long day, the entrepreneur working on their plan instead of watching TV, the student studying while their friends go out, the parent waking in the middle of the night to care for a crying child despite being exhausted. All of them are pushing through the discomfort of the moment because they know something important. Short-term sacrifice brings long-term reward. But this is where many people get it wrong. They assume this is about misery or hardship. That's not the point. It's about recognizing the gap between what you want now and what you want most. What you want now is usually comfort, pleasure, and ease. But what you want most takes discipline, patience, and yes, doing things you'd rather avoid. The wealthy didn't build wealth by spending everything they earned on instant gratification. They became wealthy by choosing to save and invest, especially when spending felt more tempting. They chose the hard path, living within their means, resisting impulsive buys, and saving money instead of spending it for immediate pleasure. Why? Because they knew this short-term sacrifice would lead to long-term financial independence. A healthy lifestyle wasn't achieved by indulging every craving or skipping workouts. It came from choosing nutritious meals over junk food, exercising even when they didn't feel like it, and sleeping early instead of staying up late. They embraced the discomfort in the moment because the outcome mattered more to them than the struggle. Here's something worth noting. Once you build the habit of doing what you don't enjoy, once you cultivate discipline, something changes. The difficult tasks become more manageable, not because they become easier, but because your capacity grows. You become more resilient, better at handling discomfort, and more capable of postponing gratification. It's similar to gaining physical strength. When you first lift weights, everything feels heavy and painful. You dislike it, but with consistent effort, what once seemed overwhelming becomes normal. Tasks that demanded intense effort eventually become second nature. The weights don't get lighter, you get stronger. The same principle applies to any discipline. The first time you push yourself to make cold calls, it's uncomfortable. You dread the rejection, the awkward moments, and the fear. But with repetition, you build emotional resilience. You develop a toughness that shields you from what once held you back. You may never enjoy rejection, but you come to value the progress it brings. That's why those who succeed often do the very things others avoid. They don't necessarily enjoy the task. They've just learned to prioritize their purpose over their discomfort. Now, here's a mindset shift that can make this journey easier. It's all in how you see it. Most people approach difficult tasks with a negative mindset. They think, I have to do this. That outlook makes everything feel like a burden. In contrast, successful individuals think, I get to do this. This moves me closer to my goals. It's the same task, but with a new perspective. And that shift changes everything. When you change your mindset about necessary but uncomfortable tasks, you change your entire relationship with them. Rather than seeing yourself as someone burdened with obligations, you become someone driven by purpose. Someone who gets to take action that moves you closer to the life you want. This isn't just a matter of wording. It's a fundamental shift in perspective. Consider this example. Two people are trying to lose weight. Both dislike exercising. The first says, I have to go to the gym. I hate this. This is awful. Why do I have to suffer like this? The second says, I get to go to the gym. I get to do something that will make me stronger, healthier, and more confident. I get to invest in my future self. Which of the two do you think is more likely to stay consistent with their workout routine? The activity is the same. The effort and discomfort are the same, but the way each person thinks about it is completely different. And that difference shapes the entire experience. Your mindset determines how you experience what you do. When you approach something you dislike with the perspective that it's an investment in your future, that it's a privilege to grow through challenge, the experience itself begins to change. This leads to another key idea, the power of future-focused thinking. Most people stay rooted in the present when it comes to comfort and stuck in the past when it comes to their dreams. And they want to feel good now while imagining their goals as distant possibilities. Maybe they'll get there someday if they're lucky. But successful people flip this dynamic. They live in the future. Their dreams aren't vague hopes. They're vivid, specific, and emotionally compelling. And they're willing to deal with present discomfort to make that future real. When you can clearly visualize the person you're becoming and feel connected to that version of yourself, doing hard things becomes not only manageable, it becomes necessary. You're no longer just pushing through discomfort, you're making deposits into the life you're actively building. This is why goal setting is essential. Not just writing down goals, but creating a vision so vivid and attractive that it pulls you through hard times. When your future becomes more meaningful than your present comfort, discipline follows naturally. Comfort is nice, but it shouldn't come at the cost of your future. You'll discover the strength to do whatever is necessary, but there's something important to understand. This isn't a one-time choice. It's a decision you must make daily. Every morning you're faced with the same question. Will you act based on what you feel like doing or based on what needs to be done? Will you take the easy route or will you walk the path that leads to your goals? This decision never disappears. Even the most accomplished individuals face this same choice every single day. The difference is they've trained themselves to make it quickly and without hesitation. They don't argue with themselves, they don't delay, and they don't offer excuses. They simply take action, regardless of how they feel. They've learned that motivation is helpful when it's there, but discipline is what you can rely on consistently. And here's the powerful outcome of regularly choosing to do the difficult things. You begin to build a deep, unshakable confidence, not the surface level kind that comes from easy wins, but the kind that's forged in effort and discomfort. When you know you can push through resistance, when you know you're capable of doing what's hard, even when it's inconvenient or painful, you develop a kind of fearlessness that's hard to match. This inner strength becomes the foundation for everything else in your life. So when new opportunities arise that require you to step outside your comfort zone, you don't freeze. And when challenges show up that stop others in their tracks, you keep moving. While others are complaining about how tough things are, you're making progress. You become the person others turn to for direction, for encouragement, for an example of what's possible. Now let's talk about why even the smallest choices matter. Each time you push yourself to do something difficult, something you'd rather avoid, you're making what I call a deposit into your discipline account. And just like with money, those deposits grow over time. The more often you make these deposits, the easier it becomes to make the next one. Your discipline strengthens. And as it grows, so does your capacity to handle bigger, more meaningful challenges. But here's the unfortunate part. Every time you avoid doing something you know is necessary just because it's hard or uncomfortable, you're not only passing up a growth opportunity, you're making a withdrawal from your discipline account. You're weakening your ability to handle challenges in the future. You're training yourself to become someone who quits when things get difficult. That's why even the smallest choices carry so much weight. When you hit the snooze button instead of getting up with your alarm, you're not just buying a few more minutes of sleep, you're reinforcing a habit of breaking your own promises. You're building a pattern of prioritizing short-term comfort over long-term commitment. When you skip a workout because you're not in the mood, you're not just missing a day of exercise, you're strengthening the part of yourself that gives up when faced with resistance. But when you make the opposite choice, when you get out of bed on time, even when you'd rather sleep in, you're reinforcing discipline. You're proving to yourself that your decisions aren't dictated by your mood. When you show up for your workout, even when motivation is low, you're not just training your body, you're strengthening your mind and emotions. You're building resilience, the kind that will carry you through much bigger challenges. This is why I often say, how you do anything is how you do everything. The habits you form in the small areas of life inevitably show up in the big ones. If you're consistent and disciplined in the little things, you'll bring that same strength to major decisions. But if you allow yourself to compromise in minor matters, you'll likely do the same when the stakes are high. Now, let's address a question that might be on your mind. Isn't this a formula for a miserable life? If I'm always doing things I dislike, when do I actually get to enjoy life? That's a valid concern. And here's the answer. When you consistently do what must be done, especially when it's hard, you earn the right to do what you truly want. The person who sticks to their workouts gets to enjoy the benefits of a strong, energetic body. The one who saves and invests consistently gets to enjoy financial peace and freedom. The person who handles their finances wisely gets to experience true financial freedom. The individual who invests consistently in their skills enjoys career growth and recognition. The one who nurtures relationships consistently gains deep, fulfilling connections. Temporary discomfort, the effort it takes to do things you don't enjoy, leads to lasting satisfaction from having what you truly desire. But most people flip this around. They seek lasting satisfaction without enduring any short-term discomfort. Unfortunately, that's just not how life works. Here's another way to think about it. You're going to pay a price, one way or another. You can pay the price of discipline or the price of regret. Discipline costs little, and you pay it up front. Regret is far heavier, and you pay it later when the opportunity is gone. The decision is always in your hands, but there's always a cost. Now let's go over some practical ways to help you follow through on the things you don't want to do. First, start small. Don't try to overhaul your entire life in a day. Choose just one task you've been avoiding, something you dislike but know you should do, and commit to doing it daily for the next month. It might be making those calls, exercising, studying, or tidying your space. Just begin with one. Second, tackle it first. Before checking emails, before scrolling through social media, before anything else, do the thing you've been avoiding. Your willpower is at its peak in the morning, and if you wait, you're more likely to find reasons to put it off. Third, tie the task to a larger purpose. Don't focus solely on what the task requires. Focus on what completing it means for your future. Ask yourself, how will this move me closer to my goals? How does it shape me into the person I want to become? When you link a difficult task to a meaningful outcome, it becomes far easier to take action. Fourth, track your progress. Count how many consecutive days you've completed the task you dislike. Acknowledge each win, no matter how small. Building discipline is much like building muscle. You need visible progress to stay motivated. Fifth, create accountability. Share your commitment with someone you trust and ask them to check in with you regularly. When you know someone else is keeping an eye on your progress, you're far more likely to stay on track. But here's the most powerful strategy of all. Change your identity. Instead of viewing yourself as someone who avoids hard things, begin to see yourself as someone who tackles challenges head on. Replace the thought, I'm not the type of person who works out, with I'm someone who takes care of my body. Replace I'm not good at sales with I'm becoming someone who adds value through my work. Your self-identity drives your actions even more than your goals do. If you view yourself as unmotivated or inconsistent, you'll act in ways that match that belief, regardless of what targets you've set. But if you believe you're a disciplined person, you'll behave with discipline even when it's tough. That's why reshaping your self-image is essential for making lasting change. Now let's talk about the seasons of life and how they relate to doing what you'd rather avoid. Life operates in seasons, each with its own demands. And each season calls for a different kind of effort. Sometimes life asks us to plant seeds even when we don't feel inspired. Sometimes we need to tend and nurture even when it feels monotonous. Other times we need to harvest even when we're worn out. And there are seasons where life calls us to rest and plan even if we feel restless or eager to act. The key to success is learning to respond to each season appropriately, regardless of your mood. Those who thrive understand the rhythm. They plant in spring even if they'd rather be taking it easy. They work hard through the summer heat, nurturing what they've started even when it's uncomfortable. They gather the harvest in the fall despite months of effort and fatigue. And they use winter to reflect and strategize even if they feel like doing more. The mistake many people make is living only by how they feel. They want to rest when they should be planting. They prefer to celebrate when they should be cultivating. This mismatch between what the season requires and what they feel like doing is why so many fall short of their potential. They want to relax when it's time to harvest. They want to stay active when it's actually the season for planting. But life doesn't respond to what we feel like doing. Life rewards those who take the right action at the right time, regardless of how they feel. This is a foundational principle of success, and ignoring it comes with consequences. Consider the farmer who skips planting in the spring because the work is tough or the weather isn't ideal. What kind of harvest will he expect in the fall? Or the student who avoids studying because it's dull and they'd rather spend time with friends. What happens to their future career? What about the entrepreneur who avoids sales calls because rejection feels uncomfortable? What happens to their business? In each of these examples, the cost of avoiding necessary effort is far greater than the discomfort of just doing the work. This is why successful people learn to appreciate the process, not just the outcome. They find satisfaction in completing what needs to be done, regardless of whether it feels enjoyable at the moment. And here's something else worth understanding. The tasks you dislike today often become the tasks you enjoy tomorrow once you become skilled at them. I've seen this transformation over and over again. The person who once dreaded making sales calls often ends up loving the challenge of persuasive communication. The athlete who struggled to train eventually thrives on pushing their physical limits. The student who once found studying a chore eventually discovers joy in learning and personal growth. Why does this happen? Because competence builds confidence, and confidence brings enjoyment. When you're new or struggling at something, it's frustrating, and frustration leads to dislike. But if you stick with it, your skills improve. As you improve, you gain confidence, and with confidence comes the unexpected reward, enjoyment in something you once avoided. And when you start to enjoy it, you do it more willingly. And when you do it more willingly, you get even better at it. That creates a powerful, positive cycle, one that can completely transform your relationship with hard tasks. But that cycle doesn't start on its own. You have to initiate it by forcing yourself to do what you hate, especially when you're bad at it, especially when it's frustrating, especially when the results don't come right away. Let me give you a real life example. Two people I know both wanted to become professional speakers. Both were terrified of public speaking. The first person chose to wait. They told themselves they'd start when they felt more confident, when they were better prepared, when the fear went away. 20 years later, they're still waiting. The second person made a different choice. They forced themselves to speak, even though they were scared, even though they felt unprepared, even though they lacked confidence. They joined a local speaking club and gave a speech every week. They hated it at first. They were nervous. They stumbled through it, but they kept showing up. Today, that person is one of the top speakers in their field. They earned six figures doing something they once feared and despised. What made the difference? It wasn't talent. It wasn't luck. It wasn't some rare opportunity. The difference was their willingness to do what they hated until they got good enough to enjoy it. This principle applies to every skill, every meaningful goal, every life-changing pursuit. The beginning is always the hardest. That's when your skills are weakest, your confidence is lowest, and the results are slow or invisible. But if you can endure that early phase, if you can keep going when you feel awkward, clumsy, or discouraged, you'll reach a tipping point. Things will get easier. You'll get better. And you may even start to love what you once dreaded. But here's the truth. Most people never get there. They quit too soon. They try something a handful of times, get discouraged by the discomfort or the lack of immediate progress, and give up. They never push far enough to develop competence. And without competence, they never reach confidence. Without confidence, they never find enjoyment. But the person who understands the power of doing what they hate, they stick with it. They embrace temporary discomfort as the price of long-term satisfaction. They accept that you have to struggle through learning before you can enjoy the rewards of mastery. Now, let's address a common concern I hear all the time. Jim, what if I'm forcing myself to do something I hate and I still hate it? What if you push yourself to do something you dislike and never grow to enjoy it? What if it always feels unpleasant? Here's my answer. So what? Not everything in life needs to be enjoyable. In fact, some things are meaningful precisely because they're challenging. The worth doesn't always lie in learning to enjoy the task. Often, the real value comes from building the strength to do things that are uncomfortable but necessary. Sometimes it's the outcome of the effort that matters, not the effort itself. There's also value in proving to yourself that you're capable of facing hard things. Someone who can only do what they enjoy is at a serious disadvantage. Their options are limited, confined by their preferences and emotions. They're unable to adjust when life demands more from them. They miss out on opportunities that require stepping outside their comfort zone. On the other hand, someone who can push through tasks they dislike holds a powerful advantage. They can chase any goal, face any difficulty, and adapt to whatever comes their way. They're not bound by what they like or dislike. Their only limits are their vision and dedication. That's what true freedom looks like. Not the freedom to only do what feels good, but the freedom to do whatever's necessary to build the life you envision. It's not freedom from discomfort, but the ability to choose discomfort in pursuit of your goals. Now let's talk about the connection between discipline and freedom. Most people assume they're opposites. They think discipline limits freedom, but the truth is the opposite. Discipline is what creates freedom. The more disciplined you become, the freer you are. The person who commits to regular exercise enjoys the freedom of good health. The one who consistently saves and invests gains the freedom of financial stability. The person who makes time to study and grow unlocks the freedom that comes from knowledge and opportunity. And the one who can do unpleasant tasks when necessary earns the freedom to pursue any ambition. Without discipline, you become a prisoner of your circumstances, ruled by emotions, impulses, and short-term desires. You lose the freedom to shape your own life because you're always reacting, not creating. This is why I often say that discipline serves as the bridge, linking thought with accomplishment, inspiration with results, and necessity with action. Without discipline, ideas remain unrealized. Inspiration fades without progress. Needs go unmet, and productivity stays locked in potential. There's another benefit to consistently doing what you dislike. You begin to build what I call emotional calluses. Just like physical calluses toughen your hands against hard labor, emotional calluses shield your mindset from the harsh realities of life. In the beginning, tough situations feel overwhelming. Setbacks can be crushing. Criticism hits hard. But when you keep showing up, despite the discomfort, when you press on through resistance and difficulty, you build resilience. You start to understand that failure doesn't define you. Criticism loses its sting. Discomfort no longer feels threatening. By regularly exposing yourself to manageable doses of hardship, you toughen your emotional core. This inner strength becomes one of your greatest tools. It gives you the courage to take risks others avoid. It helps you keep going when others quit. It allows you to stay steady under pressure, to remain calm in chaos, and to spot potential where others only see problem. But this strength doesn't develop by avoiding challenges. You can't grow emotional resilience in a comfort zone. You have to willingly step into discomfort to build your capacity for it. You must train yourself to do the hard things, even the things you hate, to develop the toughness life will eventually demand from you. Think about this. Every person you respect, every inspiring achievement you've witnessed, every success story that moves you, what do they all have in common? At some point, the person behind that success made themselves do what they didn't want to do. They faced fear, pushed through discomfort, tolerated inconvenience, and accepted temporary pain to create something meaningful and lasting. The athlete trained when motivation was gone. The entrepreneur kept working when they would have preferred to rest. The artist continued creating even in moments of low inspiration. The leader made hard decisions even when avoiding conflict felt easier. The parents chose long-term benefits for their children over short-term comforts for themselves. These individuals didn't succeed because everything was smooth or effortless. They succeeded because they embraced what was difficult. They pushed themselves to do what they disliked in service of what truly mattered to them. And here's the powerful part. Once you begin to live this way, consistently doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel, you start to attract new opportunities. People begin to recognize you as someone dependable. You're seen as someone who delivers, someone who takes action. You begin to be viewed as a leader. Others take notice when someone follows through consistently. They notice when someone shows up no matter the circumstances. They see the strength in those who overcome obstacles that stop most others. And they want to work with, follow, and learn from that kind of person. Your willingness to do what you dislike becomes a powerful magnet, not because the universe is handing out rewards for your struggle, but because you're developing traits that are genuinely valuable. You're becoming someone others can rely on. And reliability is one of the most respected and sought-earner qualities in any relationship, personal or professional. Now, let me share one of the most important distinctions you can learn. The difference between being interested and being committed. When you're interested in something, you do it only when it's easy or convenient. But when you're committed, you do it regardless of how you feel. Interest versus commitment. Most people are interested in success. They're interested in good health. They're interested in financial freedom. They're interested in strong relationships. But interest alone won't sustain you. It won't carry you through tough times. It won't support you when the motivation fades. It won't make you take action when the work is uncomfortable or unpleasant. Commitment is what makes the difference. When you're truly committed, there's no internal debate about whether or not to act. You don't negotiate with yourself. You don't wait to feel inspired or motivated. You simply do what's required regardless of your mood, your preferences, or your convenience. That's the level of commitment necessary for real achievement. It's the mindset that separates those who reach their goals from those who only talk about them. It's a type of commitment that can transform your entire life if you're willing to embrace it. But commitment has a cost. It demands that you give up the right to make excuses. It means letting go of the option to quit when things get hard. It means no longer doing only what feels easy or pleasant. It costs you the comfort that comes with staying average. Are you willing to pay that price? Most people aren't. Most want the rewards of commitment without accepting the cost. They want the results without the effort, the success without the process, the harvest without the planting, tending, and waiting. But life doesn't work that way. Life requires payment up front. You must put in the work before you enjoy the outcome. You must plant before you harvest. You must save before you can spend. You must learn before you can earn. You must push through what you dislike before you can enjoy what you love. This is not up for debate. This is not an exception. It's a universal principle, and it applies to everyone, no matter where they come from, what challenges they face, or where they're starting. The good news, this law rewards anyone who's willing to obey it. If you're willing to push yourself through discomfort, if you're willing to pay the price of discipline, if you're ready to trade short-term ease for long-term fulfillment, then there's no limit to what you can achieve. The question isn't if this works. The question is, will you? Will you do what's required when it's required, even when you don't feel like it? Will you choose the road of discipline over the path of regret? Will you force yourself to do what you hate in order to live a life you love? The choice is yours. The choice is always yours. But keep this in mind. Not making a decision is a decision in itself. Choosing to wait until you feel ready or motivated is really choosing to stay exactly where you are. Choosing to only act when it's easy is choosing to accept whatever life hands you instead of building the life you want. Time doesn't stop. Whether you act or not, the days will pass. A year from now, you'll still be 1 year older. The real question is, will you also be 1 year closer to your goals? Or will you be stuck in the same place, still making excuses, still waiting for the perfect time, still avoiding the actions that make a difference simply because they're uncomfortable? The person you'll become in a year is being shaped by the decisions you make today. The life you'll live 5 years from now is being built by the habits you establish this month. The success you achieve 10 years from now will depend on your willingness, starting right now, to do the things you don't want to do. This moment is your opportunity. This is your decision point. Will you be the person who follows through no matter what, or the person who only acts when they feel like it? Will you be the one who pushes through discomfort for something greater, or the one who avoids pain and accepts whatever life throws their way? Your future is shaped by what you decide today. Your goals are waiting for your commitment. Your potential is waiting for your discipline. The only question left is, what will you choose? The power to change your life is already in your hands. The ability to reach your goals is within your control. The chance to become who you want to be is available to you right now, but it all starts with one simple action: the willingness to force yourself to do what you don't want to do. Make that choice. Make it today. Make it now. Your future self will thank you, and your present self will grow stronger because of it. The time for delay is over. The time for action is here. Push yourself to do what you hate and watch your life transform in ways you never imagined. That's the message I want to leave you with today. That's the principle that can change everything. That's the key to unlocking your full potential and building the life you've always wanted. Force yourself to do what you hate, and everything you love becomes possible.